My name's Nick, and welcome to the Painter's Mess. Welcome to episode 3 of Thematic List Building in the Horus Hersey. So let's get into it with the Space Wolves. So we're going to start with the Space Wolves, the 6th Legion, and we got this awesome picture from the Horus Hersey blog of Russ and his Wolfkin and some Space Wolf Marines behind him. So disclaimer notes. First of all, Horus Hersey is a historical war game, and the following lists are not intended to be representations of what we'd call a meta list, though they do have some capability to have some fun and thematic and narrative games, and you can definitely do a lot of kit bashing with the lists that I plan on presenting you guys today. And they might actually win games. They are built to have some winning capability, but that doesn't mean that they're going to win. And if you're building for meta lists, then good luck with that. So I hope they can bring you some joy and some entertainment. And yeah, let's build some cool lists. So again, we're going to start with our basic agenda, some housekeeping, talk about the Legion trait, the advanced reaction, and all the things listed there. I'm not going to go through it all, but the thematic lists that I've made, we have the Headman's Axe, the first Wolfen, and then I didn't really know what to name this one, so I just called it Nameless, and that's what we're going with. So the Legion trait, it's called the Hunter Strike, and basically they make a longer setup move. So you get +2 to your setup move. Now, if you're getting out of if a tactical squad or a Grey Slayer squad is getting out of a Rhino and moving, then they don't get a setup move unless there's an assault ramp. So they do get the 1 inch, but it is a disordered charge. So anytime you have a disordered charge, you don't get that +2 to your setup move. The advanced reaction, too long didn't read. You do it during the shooting phase. It goes through, you get a 5-up feel no pain, and then you can make a setup move. And that includes the +2. So if you're a regular Grey Slayer squad, you're moving 5 inches. And if you can move 5 inches into base-to-base contact with another unit, basically it counts as a successful charge for you. And you get double ones on status checks, which means you automatically pass. So no pinning, no morale, nothing like that. So the prime advantage is you can make an Opte, which is basically a glorified sergeant, into a Pack Thane. He gets +1 attack and +1 weapon skill, putting him on Centurion level pretty much, but he doesn't have an invul. And then you can give him like the cheaper power weapons, the Frost Claws and stuff like that. The Gambits, there's 2 there. So you have the Saga of Woven Glory, which is basically if you win the challenge in that fight phase that you use that Gambit, everybody in the squad, the support squad, gets +1 attack. And then the other gambit that you can choose, and I believe you can choose that at any point and it stays this way, is nobody can leave the challenge until one or both players are dead. So if you want to keep people in to fight to the death, that's the way to do it. So the cool weapon options that Space Wolf get in 3.0 for Horus Hersey is the Great Frostblade, the Fenrisian Axe, and then you can choose the difference between a Frost Sword, Frost Axe, and Frost Claws. And the really cool thing about all of them is they all have Reaping Blow. So you'd have to actually go through the stats, but they're actually all pretty good, and definitely make sure you utilize them when you're kitting out your characters and your Grey Slayers, because they can all take Fenrisian Axes. And then special units characters, you have Leman Russ as your Primarch, Harval Redblade as the main character for Interminator armor for a Praetor, Gregor, and I think there's another named character. Yeah, Gregor Fellhand for a Centurion-like character, the Wolfkin, the Legacy Fenrisian Wolves, and I think that's it for the retinues. But the Wolfkin can only be used for Russ. You have the Caster of Runes, the Speaker of the Dead for the characters that you can choose as Centurion options or Centurion-like options. Then you have Grey Slayers and Jotun squads for your regular tactical squad and tactical support. And then for your elites, you have Deathsworn and Verigar Wolf Guard Terminators. I use all of these at least once. Maybe not the Fenrisian Wolves, Leman Russ, and the Wolfkin, just because they're very specific. Although the Wolves can actually be kind of cool. So you could probably add those pretty easily into the one of these lists. So some Legion notes. Space Wolves were super strong in 2.0 with their advanced reaction. Because of how it played out, it was a lot easier to use. Their advanced reaction now is pretty similar, but I feel like 2.0 was a lot easier to be more effective. But I think they're pretty strong still in 3.0, and there's a lot of little nuances that they can do that the standard Legion can't do. So the bad thing is like they are Marines fighting Marines, so they don't get it's a little different this edition. But with the Fenrisian Axes, they hit on 3s and they wound on 3s compared to hitting on 3s and wounding on 4s, which doesn't sound like that much of a difference, but mathematically it adds up. But it all depends on how you roll, and so your mileage may vary there. They kind of utilize speed to get in as fast as possible, especially with the inductee, and they're +2 for your setup. So the inductee rule is really cool because you can move, rush, and get your full setup as an inductee character or inductee unit. You just can't have any characters with that unit. So that's definitely a good way to run them up the board and get them really stuck into another unit right away. Or you can even put them in the Rhino. They can still get out. So Rhino moves 12. They get out, move 7. They can still rush, which puts them at an additional 4, so an 11. So you're looking at 23. And then you can just go for the rolls and hope you make it in with the charge. So like there's a way to move your inductees pretty quickly. And then the really cool thing about Space Wolves, at least from a kit bashing perspective, is that there's so many good Viking and Norse motifs for the Space Wolves. And there's so many different ways you can convert things for the Space Wolves. So even just your regular Legion guys, there's so much 40k stuff that you can still use, like Bjorn or Murderfang. And you can take some of those pieces and put them onto a Contemptor to make your Contemptor look cool. Or you can just utilize those as Castafaran Dreadnoughts, and they're actually, one of them is in this list. And you can and something else that I'm going to bring up is like the Thunderwolf Cavalry, and the Fenrisian Wolves can also be utilized. So like there's a lot that can be taken from 40k and brought down to 30k for a lot of kit bashing. And there's also 3D printing options. Like Grey Tide Studios did a whole like Space Wolf themed conversion kit that you can buy and print, and there's a whole lot of things that you can scale down for your Space Wolves. I highly recommend doing it. It's really cool. I plan on one of these lists I really want to build myself, and I might do just as a small contingent of Space Wolves. So now into the army lists. So the first one I've named Headman's Axe. Why? I don't know, because axes are cool and Space Wolves use axes, so I guess that's kind of the logic there. So let's go into the Crusade detachment. We have Harval Redblade, we have Gregor and an Opte, and then a Centurion in Terminator armor, a squad of Grey Slayers, and an Inductee squad, and then 3 Rhinos. And then we go into our armor detachment, armor support. You have 2 Sicarans and 2 Vindicators. And then we go into our heavy support, which is our Castafaran Dreadnought, and I've used Bjorn here. And then the Bloodied Claw, which is the Space Wolf specific detachment. I'm only going to use the Grey Slayers because you can give them combat vets, or you can use them as a logistical benefit, but I'm only going to use the Grey Slayers for combat vets, and the other Grey Slayer squad also has combat vets. An Armored Fish detachment with a Land Raider carrier, and then an Army Vanguard with 2 5-man squads of Varigar Wolfguard Terminators. I'm going to go into what they're kitted with and kind of explain what that's about. So, for the Headman's Axe, Harval and the Fighty Varigar. So these Varigar have the Great Frostblade, some Thunderhammers, and either some axes or some Lightning Claws. So basically they're a melee heavy squad because they do have Vanguard 4, and they're Terminators. So they do Terminator stuff. They're a Cataphractic Terminator, so they're a little slow in that regard, but they do have Vanguard 4, which is really sweet. And they just hit like a truck. I think they have weapon skill 5. They're just beat sticks. And they're not retinues, so you can use them in a variety of different ways. So Harval and the Fighty Varigar go on the Land Raider carrier and go slay the Warlord hunting or objective hunting. Pretty standard. All the lists kind of do that. Gregor and the Opte and the Combat Grey Slayers go into a Rhino and go to your middle objective. So Gregor has great Frost Claws, just Frost Claws. The Opte you can kit out however you want. And then the Grey Slayer, the first Grey Slayer squad that has combat vets, has Fenrisian axes and combat shields. So basically like your oh man, I can't even remember what the squad is called, but basically your standard Grey Slayer squad. I think they're just Grey Slayers. I'm thinking of the 40k stuff. So they are going to go fighting. They're line 2. They're just standard line units. So once you clear out an objective, you can take over and get those line points. They go into a Rhino, and they, like I said, they go into the middle objective. The other Grey Slayer squad, which you could, I suppose you don't have to give combat vets, but I did, sits with bolters, because you can swap your combat shields out for your bolters, your bolters out for combat shields, but if you leave the bolters alone, they're basically a tactical squad with Fenrisian axes, which is pretty cool. So give them the axes, keep the bolters, put them on your home objective. In the event that your enemy brings a unit onto your home objective, they have a little bit of a better fighting chance. You can also leave the Opte here. The reason why I have him with the one that goes forward is you could put him in the challenge and force the fight there, and Gregor can go slay everybody else in the combat with his Frost Claws. The Inductee go into a Rhino and go objective hunting. They are Vanguard 2, so just send them towards an objective and run them up the board as fast as possible. Probably your opponent's objective there. a Centurion, and who's in Terminator armor, and a Verigar with the Reaper autocannons. So all the Verigar in this squad have Reaper autocannons, and then whatever melee you want to give them. And they're basically a heavy support squad, an autocannon heavy support squad, with a 4-up invul, and they just move up the board and shoot. So that's pretty much all they are, is just a heavy support squad. Give them a character, and they can go fight and go have fun if they get into combat. If not, they're just lighting everybody up with Reaper autocannons, which I think is pretty cool. Your Vindicators and your Shakarans just provide tank support. And then you have Bjorn. Bjorn is kitted with a Gravis Bolt Cannon and then a Claw, but I've given him a Chain Fist thematically with the Flamer. Just send him up the board and go fight stuff. It's cool. It's thematic. You can use the model. It's pretty sweet. So again, mileage may vary on choices with weapons. So the next list we're going to go into is the first Wulfen, and I spelled Wulfen wrong. It's W-U-L-F-E-N, Wulfen. Basically, this is supposed to be like the 13th company turning into, if I have that number right, please, if I'm wrong, put it in the comments below. But basically like a squad of Wulfen and like very thematic Thunderwolves and stuff like that. So bear with me and keep an open mind on how to do this, because this is the one I want to do. So we have a mounted Praetor, either in an Outrider, Outrider Praetor, or a Scimitar Bike. Choose your flavor. It's 10 points extra. You might have to move things around, but you can pick which one you want. The Outriders have, oh god, what's the rule now? Outflank, and the other Scimitar have Deep Strike. So I would probably go with Outflank personally, but either way, it doesn't matter. You have a Moritat Mortalis, which is the one on foot, so not the one with the jump pack. But the cool thing about them is he has Bitter Duty, which is going to go with the Deathsworn that also have Bitter Duty. Speaker of the Dead with jump pack, and the Centurion with jump pack. Now, these don't actually have to have jump packs. That was kind of the whole point of this. And I've actually changed this list compared to the list that's in the folder. The actual list that's provided in the folder, now that I think about it. And I'll explain where I made that difference here in a second. But the Speaker of the Dead and the Centurion don't actually have to be kitted with jump packs. They're just say they do because they are supposed to represent the speed of the Wulfen and like how fast they can move and get up the board. So don't really deep strike them, but that is kind of like the thematic part of it. Again, Grey Slayer squad and an Inductee squad. I don't leave home without these guys for Space Wolves. Like I feel like those are staples in all of the lists. 2 Rhinos. And then we're going to kind of skip around here. We're going to jump around here quick because that's not an armor squad, and I'm not using the Army Vanguard. So let's nix those for a second and go to the right side of the screen. We have a heavy sport squad with heavy sport with the War Engine of the Contemptor Dread. Now, for me, I would use this Contemptor Dread to be 2 paired Gravis Fists, and it's going to be basically like the Murder Fang, like has 2 claws, 2 Frost Claws looking thing. But I would take the fists from Murder Fang and put them on the Contemptor, or another way to do it is take the Incendious Dreadnought from the Blood Angels and take those paired talons, like the claws, or you can 3D print them and use those as Frost Claws on the Dreadnought and just run them as Gravis Chain Fists. That's how I would do it. Either way, super thematic Contemptor Dread, add some claws to it. It looks cool. We're going to do the Bloody Claw detachment again, and this time we're going to do the Grey Slayers again with bolters. And then this is going to include our Deathsworn, and this is a 10-man squad of Deathsworn, so it is pretty expensive. I think it's like 440 points for Rad Grenades and Meltas. It's a lot. It's very, very high. And then we're going to do an Armor Fist with a... Did I put Spartan? I might have switched that to a Land Raider carrier because the main Praetor is not going to be in it. So it might not actually be a Spartan. It might be a Land Raider carrier. And there's a reason why it's swapped out. So apologize for this being incorrect. I'll make those changes later so that you can actually see the proper list in this format. But basically, I'm going to do a retinue squad as the apex. So in the retinue squad, we're going to have 2 different detachments. An Outrider Praetorian Command Squad and the Praetorian Command Squad with jump packs. And basically, this is where you put in your Wulfen models and your Thunderwolf Cavalry. So your Outriders can be Thunderwolves. So make a 5-man squad of that. Actually, I just had to step away, I actually don't remember where I left off. Let me see if I go through this. Crusade Detachment, Heavy Support, Bloody Claw, Armored Fist. Okay. We're going to actually do this right now. And we're going to swap this out. This is going to be Retinue. Retinue. And then we're going to go to Outrider. And we're going to add the Praetorian Command Squad with jump packs. This is a Land Raider carrier. So we'll save that and we'll pop that back in. Okay, so Armored Fist is going to be the Land Raider carrier, and then we're going to do a retinue. So the Outrider, Praetorian Command Squad, and the Praetorian Command Squad with jump packs. The Outrider are going to be your Thunderwolf cavalry. So take your 40k versions, not the new ones with the Primaris Marines, but the old ones, if you can still get those or find those, with the regular, the Firstborn. Grab those ones, and those are going to be your Outrider, Praetorian Command Squad. You're going to need 5. And basically, give them the axes, give them the claws, give them the swords, give them whatever you want with combat shields, and that'll keep them alive longer. Your combat shield will give them at least a 5 of Binvol, and then I think that's really all it does. And focus rolls, but you're not going to use it. But basically, your Outrider Praetorian Command Squad is going to be with your Mounted Praetor, who's also on a Thunderwolf. So maybe your Thunderwolf, your Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf character can be your Outrider or your Praetor, and he's going to have a 4 of Binvol with combat shield. And the reason why I'm giving him the combat shield is because he'll get that +1 in the focus on the focus roll when he's in combat. But also I choose the Outrider because you can either do heavy bolters or plasma. I would use the plasma preferably. It's a little bit more expensive, but like that's how the list is built out. The plasma is a lot better. And basically, like, you could kit bash or you could sculpt some like harness or a holster for your Thunderwolves with green stuff, and then put like plasma guns or plasma pistols on it, and that could represent what you're using if you wanted to be WYSIWYG'd, at least for the most part. That's kind of how I envision this set, and that's kind of what I plan on doing with it. So that's where my thought process went there. I think it'd be really fun. I think, again, it'd be really thematic. Even if you're just running them off the board, it'd be really cool because they have a movement of 12 or 14, and then if you do the scimitar bikes, it's +2 more inches, so it's a pretty big movement. Plus your setup, and your setup initially I think is a 4 or a 5 when you're using Outriders or scimitars. So it really depends on which one you do, but you can get them up the board fast. And you can also get melted bombs, I think. I'd have to go back and look, but just based off memory. So they can do some good work and some combat work for sure. And then your Praetorian Command Squad with jump pack, and this is, again, they don't actually have to have the jump packs. They're just kitted. They're set. They say they do thematically, but basically these are your Wolfen. And I would recommend, if you're going with the old scale, like finding a secondhand group of the old like metal Wolfen models, like the original out of print ones. I think that'd be really cool. But you can also kit bash your own with the new Marines, giving them like arms with claws and stuff. And you'll have to do some 3D printing, but it'd actually be pretty sweet. So I know that there's there is a character in Kill Team for Chaos Space Marines, one of the Kill Team lists, that has like a claw as a hand. That is like what I envisioned the Wolfen to have, is like the actual clawed hands. So you wouldn't be able to, unless you chopped his hand off, or maybe you take take some Khorne Demons bloodletters and cut their hands off and then put them on the arms of your Wolfen models to make them more realistic. And you can also do like the bicep arms of some of the Age of Sigmar like Khorne Berserker dudes, and really make them like beef out and like be very like one with like within Wolfen kind of theme. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. Again, the jump packs aren't necessary, just make them fast. That's kind of the goal. So first, the again, spelled Wolfen wrong here, but the notes for for this list: the Mounted Praetor is your Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf. He goes with your Outrider Praetorian Command Squad, and again, more Thunderwolves. You can also add a third retinue and add your Fenrisian Wolves and just run them by themselves. I think I don't have to check the retinue rules, but you might be able to, and just do a squad of 5 for like 45 points. It's pretty funny. Your Mortat on foot goes with your Deathsworn. He can take melted bombs, give him the dual plasma pistols, put him in the Land Raider carrier, and have him go objective hunting or like vehicle blowing up. Just like go fight stuff. They don't have Vanguard because of being an elite, so it's really just like what can you destroy things with between the rad grenades and then the melted bombs. Your Speaker of the Dead and the Centurion go in with your not veteran assault squad. Again, this is your Praetorian Command Squad with jump packs. But your Speaker of the Dead is basically an apothecary and a chaplain all in one, so he's a really good cool to keep them from getting pinned. And then you can also use the medic reaction on them as well to keep them alive a little longer. And then your Centurion is obviously just a Centurion to go fight stuff. Again, give him the combat shield so he has the +1 to the focus roll in combat. Your Grey Slayers, your close combat ones, and your Inductee go up the board for objectives. Inductee go for your opponent's objective because they are Vanguard. Your Grey Slayers are line. Put them in the middle objective, go fight there. Your Grey Slayers with your bolters sit back and hold your home objective. And then your Contemptor Dread with dual Chain Fists or Frost Claws rushes up the board and goes and fights. Did I have any vehicles in here? No, there's no other like armor vehicles here. So it's a lot of model heavy units, character or you know, troop dudes, but it's kind of cool and thematic. Again, this is the one I really want to build myself, and I think it's really cool, and I think it'd be sweet to see on the board. So if anybody watches this and plans on making this list, if I don't make it, please send me pictures. I would love to see it, and I would love to know how it plays. I do have a buddy named Travis who plays Space Wolves religiously. I want to see if I can get him to build this list and either play it against me or let me play it, because I think it'd be really fun. And then we're going to go into name lists. Now, Nigel's Stormcaller, not Joel, I don't remember his name. He's a 40k model. Either way, you could use him too as a caster of runes in Terminator armor. He's not in this list, but the picture just kind of reminded me. But we're going to go into my nameless list. And I don't know what else to name list, but I do really like the list. I think it's actually kind of fun. So we'll get into it. A Praetor in Terminator armor. They're going to go with the Verigar. So just keep that in mind. They always kind of go together. Verigar, Praetor, Land Raider Carrier. Back to the Crusade. Praetor in Terminator armor as your high command. Your command is a Centurion, a Thane, an Opte Thane, and then a Caster of Runes. Your Caster of Runes does have Storm Calling. Your Greyslayer you have a close combat Greyslayer, so Fenrir axes and combat shields, a Greyslayer with bolters and Fenrir axes, an Inductee squad, and a tactical squad. So it's all 4 of those. We're going to use 3 Rhinos and a drill, a termite drill. And then for your armor detachment, it's going to be 2 Vindicators or 2 Sakaran Venerators. I think the list I put has 2 Sakaran Venerators, which I thought was kind of cool. They're fast. They basically do what the Vindicator does. They have laser destroyers and plus a couple las cannons, so it's kind of cool. Over to our heavy support is a Deredeo Dreadnought with the las cannon array. Now, I've been looking at the Deredeo. I finally got one. And the las cannon is pretty solid. It's 4 shots hitting on 3s, but if they stay still, you get range strength +1. So it's on 10. So your las cannons are strength 10. And your 4 shots, which is the same amount of shots as a Predator with all las cannons. And that doesn't get range strength 10, it just gets extra damage. But I think you're damage 2 or 3 already. So the Deredeo is actually not bad. And you get a 5-up bin ball, and you're not worried about armor faces and all that. So I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try Deredeo out in my other list for my Death Guard, but I think it's a pretty solid platform to be using, and you can always move it and avoid the range strength if you need to. But and I'm tangent into Death Guard real quick, but I think I can move 4 inches and still get the range strength because of the Death Guard rule. So Deredeo is actually not bad. I think it's a pretty solid platform if you're using the las cannons. Haven't looked at the other weapon options, but I bet it's not too bad. So anyway, Deredeo with las cannons. Tactical support squad, we're going to use the Jorlund Hunter pack, which is the flamers and chainswords, which is pretty sweet. I really like this squad thematically. And then a heavy weapon squad of autocannons, and then we have a Land Raider Carrier. And I think, yeah, that's it. So we're going to go to the next page. So Praetor, Verigar, and the Land Raider Carrier go hunting for objectives and slay the Warlord, of course. Your Centurion and probably your Opte, or you can put your Opte with the Greyslayers. Go with the Jorlund Hunters and the Termite Drill. And you deep strike the drill. They all get out. They all have hand flamers and chainswords, and 2 of them have flamers. And basically, if at least 5 use hand flamers, they get panic. So you can use the 2 flamer dudes to cause panic. And then once they die, as long as you still have 5 hand flamers, you can still do more panic, which is kind of cool. And then they can charge and all that stuff. I chose the drill instead of a drop pod because they don't have to get out of the drill when the drill comes up. They can stay in and it can move around. It could also go behind a vehicle and use its Melta laser cutter to like destroy a vehicle. So the drill is kind of the better option. And you can either give it the Volkite or the flamers. Again, flamers, because this is kind of a flamer theme, I would give it the flamers. The Opte and the Greyslayers with the combat shields and the Fenrir axes go in the Rhino toward your the middle objective. Your Caster of Runes and your heavy weapon squad sit back, and you just light up whatever you can with the heavy weapon squad, especially using autocannons or las cannons. And then you use your Caster of Runes reaction with storm calling, rune casting, to keep them alive as long as possible by causing your opponent to snap shoot. And then obviously keeping them in a building or on the external part of a building so they can get some cover saves. Your Inductee go into a Rhino and then go to your opponent's objective. Again, getting out, charging, all that. Your Deredeo and your Vindicators or your Sakaran Venerator they go tank hunting and just kind of destroy as much as you can there. Your Tactical Squad sits on your home objective, and then your other Greyslayer squad can go to any of the other objectives that needs it. Again, just to give that extra line boost. So It all depends on what weapons you choose, obviously, but your mileage may vary. And this is, again, I put these in the list in the order of what I would pick them up as. So these are kind of the units I would pick up if I were going to buy Space Wolves in this order. A Praetor, Gregor, Crom, which makes a really good Centurion. Ulrich, which makes a really good Speaker of the Dead. And then a Terminator Praetor and the Caster of Runes. So like all of those characters are definitely the options there. Pretty obvious for some of them. It's kind of listed out. Gregor is the Centurion. Crom is the Centurion or a Champion. Speaker of the Dead for Ulrich, and then a Caster of Runes is pretty obvious. So 40 to 50 Marines, and this is either the old scale or the new scale, but I would pick one. So if you go with the old scale, look for the old Wolfen as well, and then if you pick the new one, go with 50 Marines and kit bash 10 into the Wolfen, kind of like how I explained it. It makes a set of Grey Slayers with axe and shields, a Grey Slayers with bolters and axes, an inductee which is axes and shields, and then a tactical support squad. So that's 40 models and then plus 10 for the Wolfen, or go look for the out-of-print Wolfen if you go with the old scale. The Space Wolf Contemptor body, or just find that whole Dreadnought. It's really cool. And Bjorn. You might also want to pick up Murderfang and whatever the other one is with the axe and the shield. I would look for the Thunderwolves, the old school ones with the Wolf Lord and at least 5 of the regular Thunderwolves to do that Thunderwolf list. And then do a bunch of Fenrisian Wolves while you're at it. 2 to 3 Rhinos. Probably don't need more than 3 unless you're crazy and have like 5 like I do. I don't know why, but whatever. 2 squads of Verigar. Again, one's melee focused, one's shooty focused. A character model to kit bash for your Opte. You can also use some of the other ones as well, but he doesn't need to be as kitted out as some of the other characters. 1 or 2 Land Raider carriers, depending on your flavor. 1 at a minimum. And then I'd start looking at like Harval, because named characters aren't always on my top list for like the Praetor, the High Command, but they are useful if you want to run them. Again, Fenrisian Wolves, 2 Sicarans with the option for the tops. I would Plasma seems kind of fitting here, but also keep the original one. 2 Vindicators and then 2 Sicaran Venerators. This is where, and then I would start looking at more Marines, so another squad of 10, and a drop pod or a drill for the Joe turns, that Joe turn support squad. Then I would look at the 10 Deathsworn. The problem with Deathsworn is they're just so expensive, and there's so much more that you can do without them than you can do with them. But at the same time with the Deathsworn, you might want to look at like some Cataphractii Terminators, and you could swap those out and actually have more Terminators than what it would cost for your Deathsworn for your heavy supports for your Bloodied Claw. So Terminators with Lightning Claws aren't bad either. Good option. A Daredale, again, we talked about Daredale and why it's kind of important and kind of good. This is where I would then get Leman Russ and his Wolfkin, a Spartan, maybe a couple Predators with the Flamestorm cannons, or the like Conversion Beam Cannon, which kind of looks like the Frost Beam Cannon from 40k. This is where you can, and then you go into the Aquador with Rapier Squad and Siegebreakers doing some Phosphex stuff. And then your Lord of Wars, I would always pick a Falchion compared. To me, Falchion means Space Wolves. But I suppose a Fellblade or a Glaive also work just fine. And then a Mastodon is also kind of cool. I'd look at one of those as well. And that's it. That is the whole thing. And I hope that you have picked something up. I hope this was enjoyable. I know I'm going through these really fast, getting more proficient with doing each one of these lists, or each one of these sets. They do take me a little bit to build because I have to think about it. I have to write it all out, and I have to really consider the theme of the army. So bear with me. I'm going to get through all the legions. I'm going just based off of the legions that I know very well, because these are the ones my friends play. But I hope you're enjoying this. If you have any thoughts and comments about the lists that I made, they will be linked down in the description below. But also, if you have any comments, put them down there and let me know if you want to run, if you plan on running any of these lists, because I think they're really cool. And again, I don't think anybody's really building thematic lists on YouTube. So hopefully this can get out to the people that want to see it, and it's pretty enjoyable for everybody. So again, they might not win, but at least they're really cool. And that's kind of the whole point of this narrative war game that we play. So hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, all the fun stuff. And I will catch you in the next one. But until then, go make a mess.